I'm Josh Nichols. Thank you guys for coming. Nathan, thank you for having me. I am a money mentor. I'm a day trader, and I would consider myself a financial activist. I have just kind of put this presentation together today, just hours before I came, and so if it comes off a little rusty, it's my first time going through these ideas. And some of them I kind of felt were deep ideas. And it's going to be really about asking some questions. I was just a guest at the NASDAQ this last week. I got a chance to be there during Churchill's Downs 150-year celebration. And I also got a tour of the facility. And on the wall, can we go to the next slide, Judah? I noticed this saying that said, "Question today, rewrite tomorrow." And so that kind of led me into my thinking on this presentation, because I think that I'm going to present some, I think, deep, concerning questions. We're going to talk about crypto, we're going to talk about Web3, we're going to talk about blockchain, we're going to talk about BlackRock, but we're also going to I'm going to ask some deep questions in the hope that we can set the tone for considering our impact, each of us collectively and as a community, on tomorrow. I have been a businessman for the last 20 years. I started a company years back. Right before that, I actually got an inheritance. And I immediately thought, I'll become a day trader, every wife's nightmare. And I set about to learn how to trade. And honestly, I think back on it, and I didn't know anything about day trading. I had a friend at church. That's always not a great intro. And he taught me option trading on the VIX, VIX is all about volatility. And so you're actually looking and waiting for some moment where the market essentially is either crashing. And he said, "Josh, buy this particular option, a call option." I dropped $2,400, and like 4 days later, it immediately began to go down, went down to like $1,200, and I called him up. I'm like, "Hey man, this isn't working." He's like, "You're fine, you're fine." And I was like, wow, 50% loss. But then like 2 days later, I woke up and there's some market trouble, and it went up to $22,000, and I was immediately hooked on day trading. I was like, this is amazing. It's just printed money. And shortly after that, I was ready for the next hit. And I'm like, okay, dude, what are we trading this week? And at the time, MasterCard was IPOing. And he's like, well, we're going to buy some call options on MasterCard. And I remember I put in a larger sum of money then, similar, and overnight, again, made close to $20,000. And I asked him, I said, what are you going to do? He's like, I'm going to hold mine. I said, I'm cashing mine out. That's a huge win. He said, I'm going to hold mine. I didn't put in as much as you, but I think it's going to continue to do well. Over the next 30 days, if I had held that position, it would have been worth, in just 30 days alone, it would have been worth $250,000. It would have ended up being a $250,000 option set. So I became hooked on trading. And was spending night and day in the trying to learn technical analysis. That's the area of Wall Street that drew me. A lot of people that get into technical analysis are looking for the holy grail indicator that's going to guide them into making the big bucks. My first year, I think I pulled off $120,000, and I was very proud of that at the time. But near the end of it, I hit a series of big losses. I think it was in the course of a week, I had lost $30,000, and then a couple weeks later, I lost another $30,000. And so now I'm just $60,000 up for the year. And when I began to contemplate the amount of time that I had put into it, I thought, man, I'm putting in 14 to 16 or more hours a day from night until, morning till night. And when you do all the math on that, I mean, I'm making minimum wage gains here. So I was a little bit depressed. My wife said to me, she said, Josh, didn't you say you wanted to start this company? And you should begin to have a little bit more of a balanced life. And so I put stock trading and investing sort of as a secondary position. And really just to patronize her, I was completely lying in my intentions. I said, I'll go out and I'll pitch this business idea to a customer. And I did it just so that I could get it out of the way and get back to the market. I wasn't lying, but I wasn't wholeheartedly into that idea. Went out, first meeting, the people said, oh, we love it. Absolutely, let's start doing it immediately. And I was like, oh, wow. So that turned into a business that I spent the next 20 years working on, and as a hobby trader or investor, taking much lower risk positions, I began to continue that hobby but focus on my business. In the course of time in 2020, I had a good friend who decided that he was going to take his stimulus checks that he had gotten. Him and his wife both got unemployed in 2020. They got laid off, and they get their stimulus checks, $1,200 each. And they said, well, we're going to take this. I'm going to start a YouTube page, and I'm just going to invite people on my journey to day trading or swing trading this $2,400. And he started wanting to meet with me because he knew that I was, into the charts and basically hobby trading. And we started going to breakfast once a week. Well, through some good calls, we turned that $2,400 into $50,000 in, I think it was under 6 months. And then we went on to double that in the course of the year, and everybody was following this journey along. Of course, I was behind the scenes, and just kind of going to lunch with him every 2 days out of the week, or twice a week, sharing these ideas with him. And he continued to grow. Now his page blew up, and he just started getting hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and it was a really hot time in the market leading into 2021. And in the course of time, he said to me, Josh, he said, you've got a knack for these technicals. You should share them directly with the public. And so, and this is, I'm going to be getting into my crypto here in a minute. I'm just kind of giving you a foundation. Nobody wants to get in front of the crowd necessarily, or wants to get in front of a camera and start talking. It's an uncomfortable thing. So I sort of dragged my feet on it. And eventually he pulled me onto his show. And at that point, he kind of pushed me into the arena. Now, I'll tell you something. In under 2 years, can you go back 2 slides, Judah? In the course of under 2 years, the Stocks with Josh page that I created went up to 102,000 subscribers, which might not seem terribly impressive because you might be comparing that to Mr. Beast, and he's got 200 million subscribers. But there are 50 million YouTubers, 40 million active YouTubers posting content every week. Only 1% of those 40 million have over 100,000 subscribers. They actually refer to that group as YouTube gorillas. And so those who are in this space and have seen me make this jump from nothing to 200,000 have said, Josh, your page is defying gravity. It was monetized in under 10 days, which is unheard of. If you guys go back and you Google search, how long does it take to get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, you'll find that average time is 2 years to get 1,000 subscribers. And so to have gotten to that place was a small miracle. And that led me to the NASDAQ here recently. And so we're gonna go over, like I said, Web3, we're gonna go over meme coins, crypto, Bitcoin, BlackRock, and I'm gonna do a little Q&A at the end talking about crypto safety, which is actually something that Judah's gonna lead. And we're gonna do some Q&A. I'm gonna start off, can we go to cryptocurrencies tab? So I'm gonna talk to you guys about what the definition of cryptocurrencies is. And I know right away you're thinking, well, we know what cryptocurrencies are, but let me break it down from my point of view. Crypto, the first half of that word is short for cryptography, which is really, by its meaning, hidden language. The second part, currencies, is typically something that a government issues and the people use it to make transactions in a monetary system. Now, when this term first came out, it totally confused the world. And I'm going to argue today that some of the deeper meanings of cryptocurrency are still not clear. The part that represents hidden languages is really talking what I'm going to refer to as a trustless system. It's the hidden language. It's the coding that cannot be broken that is guaranteeing the transaction from person to person. Well, the system that we have today, which is a monetary system that has been issued to us by the US government, it is the US government that we can turn to if someone within are that we're doing a transaction with fails to meet that obligation. So if I go, in the situation that I come to my friend here and I say, hey man, I like that Rolex and I'm going to give you $20,000 for it. And then he gives me the Rolex, I give him $20,000. And then I found out that this Rolex is a fake. And he lied to me. He told me it was authentic. So now I've got to go make a police report. I've got to hire an attorney. I've got to hope to bring him before a judge where the original transaction would be enforced, right? The cryptography of the hidden language represents an undefeatable army that will create instant justice. Now this, you might say, Josh, we kind of get this. But the future of cryptocurrency and its relevance to society is that it's actually doing something that people are not foreseeing, which is actually the replacement of government. Government in essentially, I'm going to refer to it as, I'm not going to use the word metaverse because I think that'll twist it. We're talking about all of our lives on the blockchain. So now, take me to the next slide, Judah. Now, I'm going to compare the dollar to Dogecoin. And at that point, you're saying we're having a serious conversation about investing, and you're telling us that cryptocurrency is going to take the place of governments. And now you're bringing before me the joke that is the Dogecoin. To give you a little bit of a background on Dogecoin, Dogecoin was started as a joke by its founders. It was a copy of the Litecoin blockchain, which was a fork of Bitcoin. It was created in 2013, shortly after the first Bitcoin halving, a month later. It's been through 3 crypto winters and 2 more Bitcoin halving cycles. And currently, by market cap, it is the 6th largest crypto project in the world, if you don't count the stable coins. Okay? So this cryptocurrency that I just told you had extreme relevance and was taking a position essentially against known governments, even the United States government. Now I'm telling you that it's basically the front runner of that movement. One of the front runners, the top 10 heavy hitters, is Dogecoin. A joke, right? Dogecoin is actually considered it's considered an inflationary coin because it has an unlimited supply. There's never going to be an end to the amount of Dogecoins that can be minted. And on that note, currently, the way that it was originally set up, there are 10,000 new coins created every single minute. Now, we can contrast that to Bitcoin. We know that there is a limited supply. There's only 21 million that will ever be created. And as of this last halving, it's become less inflationary than gold. It is now the most deflationary asset that can store money and hold value on the face of the earth, right? But Dogecoin's not that. Dogecoin is right on the heels of Bitcoin with an unlimited supply, producing 10,000 new coins every minute. And that sounds pretty bad. Let's go to the next slide. Until you compare it to the US dollar. All of a sudden, I remember the first time I saw that 10,000 new coins a minute, that's a minute, I remember thinking, wow, that's terrible. But in 2020, your United States government produced $60 million per minute. Now, this particular point was meant to draw you in, to have you laugh at Dogecoin, only for you then to realize that Dogecoin has better economics currently than the US dollar. Even at this pace, even though we're not printing it the way we were in 2020, we are actually printing 10 million US dollars every single minute. Brief commentary on the US national debt. This isn't really part of my presentation, but we're just under $35 trillion. I talk about the economy every day on my show. And I always face a lot of bears, people who are fearing the mother of all recessions. And there is the concern of a recession. We had an inverted yield curve, and 100% of the time, it has led us to a recession. Typically when the Fed produces his first rate cut, or when he initiates his first rate cut after a rate rising cycle, we do get a minimum of 20% downturn, and in the last 2 cycles we had up to a 50% downturn. So there is the concern of a recession. But I love a quote by Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, and he's going to be a focal point in this presentation, where he was asked, he was talking about the economy, and he said, yeah, we're pretty optimistic about the future over the next 5 years. And somebody began to press him on the bearishness of that inverted yield curve and the different things that the economy was facing, global conflicts. And he said, in just passing, he kind of almost annoyed. He's like, how much are we going to fall back when the U.S. government's printing $1 trillion every year? How much can we really fall into a recession when we're in the fastest cycle of printing money and pushing it into the economy? In all global perspective, we probably should have a recession if we were to put a balance to the economy. But as Larry Fink doesn't believe that that's actually coming down the pipeline. So this next section is going to be a little interactive. I'm going to talk about how I value cryptos. And I've come up with 3 lenses or 3 lights by which I look at all crypto projects. And this wasn't anything I saw anywhere. This is just what I've come to realize, that each crypto has to pass a certain test for it to survive or grow or thrive or be a good investment asset. And it's basically this trifecta: regulation, community, and technology. Those are the 3 things that every crypto project, to be determined if it's going to have a future, has to essentially pass the 3 tests of regulation, community, and technology. Let me see, Judah. What's the next slide? Oh, yeah. That was the Dogecoin burning the US dollar. Go back to the question mark. Okay. So regulation. Regulation is all about the SEC. It's the current government or powers that be that are opposing the advancement and growth of cryptocurrency, who are basically coming along and trying to stop it, or trying to control it, or trying to regulate it. And they're saying that these crypto projects are securities, unregistered securities, that have basically gone out and raised capital without permission and without the proper licensing. And so at the moment, all of the crypto projects that have been out there and have been developing have been getting along and advancing without any oversight by the US government. Of course, the big complaint there is that a lot of these platforms, Coinbase, a publicly traded company, Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, has said, regulate us, tell us how it works, tell us how to get licensed, tell us how to move along. Of course, the SEC hasn't provided that. They just basically let them do whatever they were doing, and then they sent out the Wells notice and they filed a lawsuit and said, you've been doing it all wrong. So, well, the very first test that any crypto project has to pass is the test of regulation, and we've enjoyed all these years without the SEC being armed and attempting to control crypto because really nobody knew what to do with it. And now we're seeing a full-blown attempt on the part of the SEC to get a hold of it. The second is community. Now this is the dark horse of these 3 that nobody really understands. And I'm going to spend the most time trying to shed light on the impact of what community is in regards to the growth or the investability of a crypto project. It's all about consensus. In this regards, I would say it is a popularity contest. It is a reflection of the re-emergence of tribalism, where trust for government has been lost and communities have become fractioned off. It is about successful messaging, glorified marketing. It is how nations have been redrafted or reimagined or hijacked by the likes of Hitler or Mao, born of discontent and frustration. So that's a big, broad idea, very dramatically put. But what we are seeing an enormous distrust of government in the last 4 years, let's call it. And in that environment, people are pulling together in communities. We see it here locally in San Diego. I said to my wife years back, I think it was when Trump was president, I said, mark my words, within so many years after Trump's presidency, you're going to see real news articles and reports about Texas attempting to secede from the Union. And so we are definitely moving towards a period of time in which people are drawing closer to communities and having less trust in the government that had been sort of the umbrella of protection that they had enjoyed. People are not looking to the government right now with a high level of trust. And so I'm referring to community is almost innate. I'm taking the time to describe it because there is this community nature forming in these crypto projects. Dogecoin is the 6th largest crypto by market cap because in simple terms, it literally represents a flag, an icon, a dog, and people are aligning with it and wanting to be part of the Doge army. They're wanting to be part of the XRP army, as if they're even gathering identity to aligning or believing in this. And so as we're looking at crypto projects, one of the very next criteria that we have to examine is whether or not that crypto project has community. Who's using it? Who loves it?
It also might be the currency of X, right? Because he's turning that into like a more robust thing. That's on the table at least. I'm gonna get to that, and I'm gonna open it up, and I'm have you guys throw out some cryptos to me, and we're gonna analyze using these 3. I have a feeling you're going to be a contributor to that. And then the third category is technology, which is actually, I've been in some great debates with Nathan about which of these is the most important. And Nathan, because he is a super smart technology guy, he has said, it's technology, Josh. Technology is the utility of the token. It's exactly what it does. What problem does it solve? Now, this is the one that most people think matters the most, but I believe that they're wrong. Because technology, as we've seen, can be as simple as a copy and paste function. We saw that the great forward stride in innovation in Bitcoin ultimately got reduced to a fork by Litecoin, a dispute of how it should be managed by the community, and then a copy-paste of Litecoin to create Dogecoin. And Litecoin has since fallen to the wayside, and Dogecoin is the number 6 crypto in the world. Not saying that technology isn't important. I'm just saying that when technology has come fully into fruition, it ultimately can be reduced to a utility. At one time, having electricity in your home was a massive feat of innovation, but now none of us even consider it. Where community consensus reigns supreme, I would give you the example of a classic example is Edison versus Tesla. Everyone believes that Tesla had the superior technology, but in the end it was Edison who essentially won the popularity contest, who essentially was better at marketing and messaging, and essentially was the one who walked away with all the money. So these 3 factors have, in my mind, emerged as the trifecta of testing any cryptocurrency investment to see whether it holds any weight or whether it'll matter in the future. And so I'm going to play a little game. Now have you guys shout out a crypto project, and I'm going to critique it. I'm going to give you my opinion as to how it lines up with these 3. So which ones come to mind?
Chainlink.
Chainlink?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Pepe.
Okay, so Chainlink is obviously one that is pushing forward on the front of technology, but the problem with Chainlink is that it doesn't have the freedom to thrive right now because of regulation. So the issue with Chainlink is that it is great technology. It's a necessary problem-solving tool, but the concern that I would have being an investor in Chainlink, which I'm not, I own Chainlink, but the concern that I have, the chief concern, is largely going to revolve around regulation. So the very first thing that we're going to know when Chainlink becomes highly profitable and we want to load our bags, essentially, as the terminology goes, is when we are convinced that regulation is going to let them slide through the door. Chainlink has community. It doesn't have the same community as Solana, right? Solana is the golden child of layer 1s right now. And so we see the most adoption, even though I think they've got some of the biggest problems, they're always going down. We see them having the most adoption to use. And so Solana's got a better community right now than Chainlink. Technology, I will not comment deeply on, other than its strength is in its technology and the problems it's attempting to solve. So I wanted to give you guys an example of how those 3 apply to any project and how you might consider them. If you get ones that line up with all 3, I'll be honest with you, Bitcoin does. Bitcoin has universal adoption. Larry Fink loves it. Countries of the world are adopting it. We've got a Bitcoin ETF. So we've got wholesale adoption. The technology has proven itself. It's survived, right? It's got the community, and it can't be regulated because it was never utilized to raise capital as a security. So it's an example of one that passes all three. So if you were to make an investment, you ought to have more Bitcoin than you do Chainlink. Does that make sense? All right. Now, Bitcoin, where are we at with our, go ahead to the next one, Judah. All right, well, on that point, we're going to talk about Bitcoin glory. Bitcoin has been the fastest moving asset in the history of mankind. It's reached 1 trillion in market cap, quicker than any of the Magnificent Seven. In 12 years, it reached 1 trillion in market cap, and so it has moved faster than any other investable asset in history. Go to the next one, Judah. As far as it goes, if you had had the foresight to put all your money into Bitcoin back when it first came out, or even pre-2013, you would be outperforming every one of the Magnificent Seven: bonds, gold, the dollar, and the S&P 500. Truth be told, if you had put all your money back in the day, just barely a decade ago, you would be a millionaire or a billionaire right now. Go on to the next slide. And this is what's gotten the attention of the investment community finally. And this has ignited for the very first time a potential race between the degens, the general community that I've referred to, investing in this, the early adapters who have largely treated it like a lotto, with the serious investors who are understanding how this could shape the world. These are the ones who understand the cryptography part, the hidden language part. These are the ones who see that army and control of that army and how cryptocurrency will be used to replace borders and governments. I'll get into more of that as we go. Let's go to the next slide. BlackRock. So I'm going to read you this interesting article that just came out this week. In a recent statement, Fink revealed that BlackRock's goal is to achieve tokenized. Real quick, does everybody know who BlackRock is? Okay. $10 trillion in assets, the largest investment firm in the world. And, you know, for the longest time, all of these, you know, we'll call them the Warren Buffetts, all of the titans of finance, you know, you ask them about Bitcoin, and they would have told you that it was worthless. I remember specifically, and you guys have heard this, Warren Buffett said, but what does it make? You know, people like Coca-Cola, they always are going to want sugar water. So, you know, that's something that's never going away. People are always going to want sugar water. So what does Bitcoin make? What does it produce? And the answer is nothing. It's just zeros and ones. What he did not see was that 300 army. The opportunity of that enforcement of a trustless, borderless, empowered blockchain. He didn't see the blank canvas and the future that BlackRock sees, where everything and all of your wealth and your mortgage and even your identity, which is far more intimate, will one day be on that blockchain because it will be the safest place to put those assets in the world. He didn't see the army. He just saw that it didn't produce anything. He didn't value and respect the crypto part of the currency, the hidden language. In a recent statement, Fink revealed that BlackRock's goal is to achieve tokenized stocks on a single shared ledger. This innovative strategy behind its Bitcoin ETF aims to revolutionize the traditional securities market. This will represent a significant step towards embracing blockchain technology. BlackRock's Larry Fink reveals visions for tokenized stocks on blockchain. The vision of tokenized stocks involved representing traditional stocks as digital tokens on a blockchain. This will allow for more efficient and transparent trading. The idea is to streamline the securities market by leveraging the benefits of blockchain. This will reduce settlement times, enhance security, and increase accessibility. All of that is somewhat true. Settlement times should be relatively instantaneous. Security is that cryptograph hidden army. Increase accessibility. That's somewhat true too, but the question comes down to who's writing that blockchain. And what are the ideas behind writing it? Up until now, it's been entirely governed and created by what I'm going to refer to as the degens. And now the investment class has entirely woken up to the opportunity. And the first thing they said is they've taken their sacred stocks, right? This is the investment vehicle of wealth building for generations. And they've said, blockchain, Bitcoin, can be the foundation for that. And it will be the gatekeeper, and it will protect your wealth. And so I just want to have you guys take a minute and acknowledge how significant that the CEO of the largest investment company in the world has just said, we are transporting and we want to transport the sacred cow onto the blockchain. Now, this has really big meaning and significance to all of us as investors and wealth builders, and I'm going to try to dive into it. So up until now, it's been all about the degens who've treated crypto as a lotto. It's been on their backs that it's been carried forward, but now we're dealing with the institutional adoption and their vision of essentially a new world order. You know, Judah made a quote to me as I was sharing this with him on the drive over. He said, if you have trillions of dollars, it's not about the money anymore. It's about the power. Let's get to the next slide. There's Larry Fink looking ominously at you guys. Let's go to the next slide. So, now this is where I want us to expand our imagination. All of this is about thinking broadly. White paper, crypto, constitutions. So, if we can accept the fact that the blockchain is going to be the gatekeeper, if we can accept the fact that it's going to be the blockchain in whom we trust, if we can accept the fact that blockchain is going to take the place of that judge, that lawyer, that cop, and that I am going to be operating within an environment that watch that I got from him has already been qualified perfectly. It's already been identified. The entire history, ownership of that watch has been known for generations. So is my currency. It's valid, it's authenticated, and the blockchain has done all of that for us. We realize that we are moving into a new era of commerce, and the question is, who's writing this blockchain? And where are they getting their ideas and their values, right? And I'm going to tell you guys, up until now, it has been just along the lines of trial and error and imagination. Crypto is drawing from the tenets of Western civilization, capitalism, fascism, socialism, democracy are all being considered and reconsidered right now. So capitalism has been the accepted model, but when capitalism and Western civilization was born, it was born out of fascism at a time when kings and queens ruled, and there came a new opportunity, a new land. Nobody had authority or dominion. There were no city gates over there. And so people seeking religious freedom got onto some boats and said, see you later, suckers, and went across to the New World and risked all of the problems that they could possibly face, the Indians, whatever it is that was over there, starting from scratch and building a new empire. And it was out of that that they began to imagine what society should look like, what rights, benefits, constitutions should there be. We know that a lot of those founding fathers were Christians, men of faith, men who were drawing upon Scripture. And after they wrote an incredible constitution, they then began to consider what else do we need here? We need a Bill of Rights. Now, if we're on the same page, if I have presented to you that cryptocurrency and BlackRock and institutional money is going to position blockchain as the gatekeeper, as the trustless society, that it's going to take the place of borders, then we have to begin to consider where are they drawing these ideas from. Now, this is where this becomes a little bit more interesting. On to the next slide. Like, Josh, what are you doing here? Kakinu, one of the fastest, I'm going to make my point here, and we'll dial it in. Life is better when you have some cock in you. That's what that's meant to say. You guys didn't see this going here, did you? But I'm going to make my point, and I'm going to drive that point home. The icon is a rooster. And now I'm going to suggest to you that, remember our three tenets: regulation, community, right, and technology. So how does this fit in? This is one of the fastest growing meme coins. Millions of dollars are pouring into it. It's built on the Avalanche ecosystem, which is a fast growing competitive technology. These guys have aligned with Cock Inu simply because Avalanche's colors are red, the rooster's red, and it seems that simple on the front end of it, but they obviously have sat down and talked about what they're building. Go to the next slide, Judah. Now, in truth, the tokenomics of this coin are brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And they should scare you the way they scare me. Because there are development teams out there creating these blockchains that are going to become rallying banners of tribalistic investors. And here's the dynamics. No allocations, no pre-sales. So I know there's some smart crypto guys in the room. Who are they speaking to? What does that mean? No allocations, no pre-sales.
It means that the devs didn't fill their bags. It means that the sale was open to everyone. They weren't.
Correct.
No,
And so what did they accomplish by doing that?
No regulation.
Ba-bam. So passed our first test, no regulation. These four lines are profoundly powerful. This is the new capitalism right here. And the first two lines are not meant for you guys. They're meant for the regulators. You can't do anything to us. You cannot do anything to us, right? Now the second two, no pre-sale, no taxes, and no BS. Now these are actually for you guys. This is basically saying, it's very similar to the idea that if you simply come and build on this land, what land are we talking about, Josh? If you come and build in this community, because I want you to align community with land, we're not going to mess with you. We just want you to come. We just want you to come. We need your feet present. We need your eyes present in our community. So there's nothing here to fear. There's no hidden teeth. There's no BS. There's no taxes. Man, if we got invited, if all of a sudden Trump was here, and he said, I'm going to run a little pitch by you guys first. I'm going to invite you to the new America. And we're going hardcore capitalism, back to the basics. We're going to reinstate the Constitution. We're going to honor the Bill of Rights. And the first thing I'm going to get rid of is taxes. You guys would erupt. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to drain the swamp. We're going to get rid of the bullshit. Forgive me, guys. That would be very pleasing to a lot of conservatives' ears. So now we've taken care of what group? Community. So now we've taken care of regulation and we've taken care of community. Well, we have a problem, right? I personally, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but based on adoption, it may not be that big of an issue. Okay. What problem have we not addressed out of my trifecta of crypto concerns?
Technology.
Yes, sir. We have no technology here. It's a freaking rooster and a cock joke. Okay. However, this is where you have to watch carefully because this company has aligned with Avalanche, which is a pretty serious technology. Okay? So now this is the tribal flag to pull people to the real tech. So all you have to do after you've disarmed people with the cock joke and you've told Gary Gensler, nothing for you to see here, and you've convinced the community that you're better than Hex, if you guys know who that is, you know, now you're like, you know what, I can get on board with this rooster. I'm going to suggest to you.
I'll throw in too that as someone who trades a lot, and I've been doing meme coins this year more than I ever have, and I've gotten rug pulled 6 times in the last 2 months.
Wow.
Fortunately, not on any huge allocations, but it's kind of massive.
Yeah, and so when you see these no allocations and no pre-sales, that comforts you too, doesn't it?
Oh, totally.
Big time.
I'm actually so burned now that I'm so careful with my checklist now, and this would fulfill my checklist.
While everybody is laughing about the cock joke at the beginning, these guys have fired away at all 3 of the concerns. And I'm going to suggest to you that they're a massive Trojan horse to society. Because if you, like me and Larry Fink, understand that we are not in a bordered society anymore, that the Constitution has already fallen, the Bill of Rights are already being ignored, there's $60 million being printed a minute. Now you understand that it's extremely important to rally the troops to community. And the ones with the simplest message, who are simply saying, come and join, are the ones that are going to win. Take us to the next slide. All right. Now this brings us to Web 3. Now, I was chatting with my wife and Judah about this presentation, and there were some points in which they're like, hey, Josh, you're kind of losing us a little bit. So we're going to definitely do a Q&A after this. But it makes sense to me to jump to Web 3. Web 3 basically is the third evolution of the internet, right? And back in the year 2000, so less than 24 years ago, there was 413 million users. Currently, in the last 24 years, there's now 3.4 billion users, which I believe is largely half of the world's population is now on the internet. Some people could argue that the internet was the precursor to blockchain, and the blockchain is simply an extension of the internet that has connected us all. We were the initial blockchain, and now there is a blockchain for our transactions. Web 1, if you understand this, I'm going to break this down. Maybe you guys already understand it, but we're going to go through what Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3 is. Web 1 was read-only. This was essentially the internet age as being a library. It's where you were able to show up and get information that wasn't available to you without actually going down to the library. There was no smartphones at the time. There was no Googling. I remember when I left my house, Jorge doesn't know these days, my parents didn't know if I was alive until I came back, right? There was no checking in. So Web 1 was read-only, static pages, opportunity to gather information. Web 2 was read and write. The write part is significant because that is the age of social interaction. This is where we were not only able to read, but we were able to come out and say, hey, I've got a story to tell. I'm pretty good at stock analysis. Matter of fact, I could help you. You could follow me. Stocks with Josh. So now I am both reading and gathering and learning, and I'm sharing. Now this age has been dominated by some companies that have emerged. We're going to call them the Big Five. Next slide. Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. Now, these companies have blurred the line between countries and corporations. And you guys have heard that different times that some of these companies have bigger GDPs than essentially small nations, right? So these American corporations have competed on a global scale for influence and power. And at the current moment, these Big Five have a $4 trillion grip on society, which basically means that even though Web 2 has given you the ability to read and write, they own what you write. It goes through their city gate. It becomes their property 100%. So where does that bring us to Web 3? Web 3 is a concept only. We're not in the world of Web 3, and we may never get there. And that's where some of the initial beginnings of asking the right question so that we can write tomorrow becomes even more relevant. This is where you read, you write, and you own what you have written. And you own your identity. You guys know, all of us opted in on our iPhones to whatever they asked us to, because how then can we participate? It was the first pass or fail test for whether or not we would give away a ton of our rights into this new world order. And at this point in time, the question is whether or not Web 3 will come about, or if it's simply going to remain a myth. It's going to be those people who are actually writing the blockchain. It's those people who are creating the community are going to determine whether that community becomes large enough and strong enough to pull weight in the global arena. Right now, one of those potential contenders who's at least bringing the subject up to the world is Elon and Twitter. Can we go up to the next slide? Elon came out and unequivocally proved to us that that free speech had already been lost in the United States, that we were under a system of propaganda, that the FBI was in direct alignment, first name basis, back and forth communication between their operatives and the social media operatives. And so now we get into a more ominous place that not only does the Big Five have a grip on our lives, but we now see that a smaller group of people whom we don't even know, who are faceless and hidden, they have even a bigger control over that. Elon has proven, that there was a manipulated election. Now he himself is still part of social media, right? He's not Web 3. He owns every single thing that gets posted on that page. He's at least pointing to the problem that exists under Web 2. Let's go to the next one. Now, this is where the conversation gets deep. And after I shared this with my wife, she said, "You've lost me." So we're going to dwell on this point a little bit. And so I'm going to talk about the mark of the beast. You're like, "Josh, you are going everywhere with this." And I'm not going to talk about it to give a fearful, ominous sense of the future, because that's not the way that I feel. But I'm going to read this to you, and we're going to just make a couple points before we transition to my final point and then my conclusion. "Then I saw another beast rising out of the earth. It had 2 horns like a lamb, and it spoke like a dragon. It exercises all the authority of the first beast in its presence, and makes the earth and its inhabitants worship the first beast, whose mortal wound was healed. It performs great signs, even making fire come down from heaven to earth in front of people. And by the signs that it is allowed to work in the presence of the beast, it deceives those who dwell on earth, telling them to make an image for the beast that was wounded by the sword and yet lived. And it was allowed to give breath to the image of the beast, so that the image of the beast might even speak, and might cause those who would not worship the image of the beast to be slain. Also it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand or the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark. That is the name of the beast, or the number of its name. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of man, and his number is 666. So the idea that I wanted to present here, without tilting the cart and confusing everybody, is that 2,000 years ago, before there was any smartphones, calculators, maybe they just had, what was that little sliding device, that the abacus? Somehow it was imagined that there was a numerical system coming down through the corridors of time. And in that numerical system, that you would only be able to transact in currencies. You would only have access to your wealth and to making transactions if you were to be part of that system. Now, I'm not saying Bitcoin is the mark of the beast. I'm not saying any cryptocurrency is. People believe that barcodes that were on cereal boxes was the mark of the beast. And to some degree, we could say that down through the corridor of time, all innovation and all technology could be leading to this scenario where we can no longer access our wealth or grow our wealth or be the investors that we are, simply because there is a system in place that, unless we accept what is behind that system and what are the fundamental natures of that system, we would be blocked unless we accepted it. Judah made a comment to me, because I was trying to say, okay, well, how can I make this make more sense? All of us one day are potentially going to leave an investment to our children. We all trade, many of us trade our time for money so that we can accumulate those dollars, which have less economic value than Dogecoin in its inflationary sense. We all trade our money, we all trade our time so we can collect this wealth. And a lot of us are doing it for lifestyle, to take care of our families, and to one day leave it as an inheritance to our children. What I'm suggesting to you is that we want to be the ones that are writing that future. We want to be the ones who are in control of that community. We want to be the ones who are positioned to actually deliver that wealth to our children. Judah made this comment to me. He said, imagine storing up an inheritance, right, here in the United States. And you got time to reading the will, all the kids are listening carefully, and they find out that their inheritance is stored in a bank in China, right? And so at some point, blockchain and crypto, our entire lives, our homes, our money, every single dollar that we own is going to be placed on that blockchain. And the question is, who wrote that blockchain? We got one more segment for you guys. This is city gates and cryptocurrency. Can you go to the next slide? The Old Testament provides us with an image of a stronghold surrounded by thick walls, a drawbridge, and fortified gates. The gates of the ancient cities are not as we imagine today's gates, but massive gates made of stone, iron, brass, or wood, frequently sheeted with metal. They were tall and wide. The beautiful gate of Herod's temple, Acts 3:2, was made of brass and required 20 men to close it. These gates were opened during the day to allow the citizens to come and go, but were generally closed and barred at night as a safety measure to keep out enemy attacks. Whoever controlled the gates of the stronghold ruled the city. The gates of a city were very significant. The gates were seats of authority, Ruth 4:11. At the gates, wisdom was uttered, Proverbs 1:2. Judges and officers served at the gates, administering justice, Deuteronomy 16:18. And the councils of state were held at the gates, 2 Chronicles 18:9. The word was read, Nehemiah 8:2, and the prophet proclaimed God's message, Jeremiah 17:19, from the gates. The people also had to enter through the gates to worship the Lord. Stand at the gate of the Lord's house, and there proclaim this message. Hear the word of the Lord, all you people of Judah who come through these gates to worship the Lord. Ultimately, I am challenging you guys to see crypto as the new city gates. In a world in which the Constitution and the Bill of Rights has yet to be written, in a world where we still have the opportunity to work together as a community. And I want to remind you that while that we should be taking our position as investment creators, wealth builders, we should be taking our position at the gate and giving our influence. And in the days in which we delay to take that position, I want to remind you that there is a group of guys who are essentially, they're essentially holding their cocks at the city gate. So that brings me to the end of my conclusion. Thank you. Thank you. I know there's a lot of thoughts. I'm curious what questions you have.
With the meme tokens, right? They listed some of their stuff up there, but when they, the rug pulls that Jake was talking about, right? If they're not renouncing their LP, control of the LP liquidity pools, things like that. Even when they do, how are they generating revenue?
I think ultimately, I'm going to answer that one way, and I'm going to let Judah make some comments on it another way. The majority of them have some opportunity to make some revenue through gas fees. It depends on whether you view that as taxes. Ultimately, it's going to come down to if you can see these meme coins as being the community, they don't necessarily have to be the tool of revenue. They're essentially bringing the customer base with them, sort of like the AARP, I believe, right? What they're doing is they're collecting a fee. People are buying into the project, and then they're connecting them with a world of discounts, right? And so that's the reason why you're seeing Avalanche partner with Kakinu, because they're trying to pull the power of that community together. And so the value is not necessarily on the base blockchain. That it's going to be the value of everything that's built on top of it, where there will be the cost of goods. Imagine that being your local store, your local tailor, your local baker. It's all of the transactions that will one day be built upon it. And let me just give you this example. Go back to thinking about the social media model, where initially Facebook, I remember back in the day when it wasn't monetized, and they had the IPO, I think at $15, it ran up to 30, came back to 15. Would have been nice to have bought. I bought some, I traded it up, and I sold it. Would have been a great long-term investment. But the big question and all the FUD that was circulating around Facebook at the time was, how are they going to make any money? Right? Which was a joke. Because when you have the consumer and the customers, never forget that trifecta I gave, it's a very powerful understanding. When you have the customers, you can monetize that in the course of time. They did it with advertising. Judah specializes in kind of crypto security. And whenever I have a project that that I want to get vetted, I turn to him. And just through there's no degrees for this, but I'll say, hey, this looks interesting, and bam, he'll do his quick search, which I can let him describe, and right away he'll say, oh no, these are the same guys that did this rug pull over here, right? And you know it because of this, you know it because of the Twitter, you know it because of the site, you know it because they're not doxxed. I mean, so there is the need. Obviously, this is still the wild, wild west. It is an unregulated space. Truth be told, I'm advocating in this long speech here today that we're the ones that need to define what that community, what that constitution should look like, right? But it is unregulated. And if it worked out to our best interest, we would carry something right past the regulators and right past the big 5 social media giants and right past BlackRock and Larry Fink, and we would recognize the power of Web3, reading, writing, and owning our lives. The worst thing that could ever happen to all of us is the day that they say to us, your identity must live on the blockchain that you don't own, where there is no constitution that reflects your values.
If you were starting out in crypto investing, what platform would you use? How much money would you invest, and what would you buy?
So that's a great question, and I would suggest that you watch my show because I will give a lot more opportunity to expand on the answer I'm going to give you right now. So I would argue something that I don't know that many might disagree with what I'm about to say. You cannot consider, if you're thinking crypto, I don't believe there is an investable asset in crypto right now. There's only the opportunity to essentially swing trade within a 4-year cycle. And the safest spot to do that is really the only spot that's been available to us. We've been corralled into a single choice, which is Coinbase. They're publicly traded with open books, and so all the other exchanges, are either under attack by the SEC and will be shut down, and they will push to extradite the founders, and bring them under justice to keep the U.S. citizens from trading outside of the scope of where they would like. So your only option to on-ramp money and to invest in crypto is Coinbase. And it's a relatively safe choice because these are the custodians for Fidelity, BlackRock, ARK, Cathie Woods, and so you're going to on-ramp your money into Coinbase. And then you have to understand that it is a 4-year cycle. Cycles are period of accumulation referred to as the winter. Then you have a markup phase, which some people refer to as a parabolic move. Then you go into a season of distribution. Distribution is characterized by wide price action movements. So you're going to go up and down $10,000 in the course of a single day.
After Bitcoin dominance. That's why there's a 4-year cycle.
Yeah. So you then go into a decline phase that then bleeds into a winter phase. And in general, there have been investable assets in crypto. So there have definitely been ones that you could buy, and if you had bought them early, which you don't really have access to them early on Coinbase, because Coinbase isn't the place where you're going to get early access. My good friend Mark here, who's a crypto degen, I'm sure Jacob both knows that as well, that the only way to really make big bucks in crypto right now is to go offline, outside of Coinbase, and get to a place where you can buy these early projects, which is essentially, it's not illegal, but it's illegal for them to sell them to us. I use the example of like a lemonade stand. If you had a lemonade stand in New York and people were buying lemonade, they're not going to come and arrest the people that bought a cup of lemonade, but they're going to come and they're going to ask the guy selling lemonade, do you have a license to sell? Because who knows, this might be unsafe. He's the one that's going to get fined. We're going to walk away drinking our lemonade. So you got to go outside of Coinbase to really invest in early projects. And you need to be aware that there's a 4-year cycle, as he was saying, based on Bitcoin dominance. And we have already had, I will even go as far as to say that you're really going to get 2 large pumps. Those pumps are going to occur in under a year and a half. And it's going to be the first pump coming out of the winter cycle. We've already had that, right? Now we're in this consolidation period, and it's going to turn around, and it's going to give us one big pump move, which, might be a 4-month period, right? Where it's going to go up 1 month after the other. and that pump's going to get over. And the absolute lion's share of crypto investors are going to think that this just goes on and on. They're going to believe all the stories about Bitcoin going to 500,000, and they're going to load their bags while the market is getting ready to go back into hibernation. And it's been this way for 4 cycles, and I don't foresee it changing. And so the first thing I'll tell you, I mean, one of the biggest takeaways, practical takeaways, is there is no hodl, there is no buy and hold. If you hodled some cryptos that you got in early on outside of Coinbase, it's possible that they would only go higher and higher, but there's always been to every crypto project an 84 to 90% decline from the all-time highs. So why in the world would you buy Apple long term if every 4 years it lost 80% of its value? You wouldn't. So there is no, this is a wealth building space. Where, where right now, anyone in this room could probably make $250,000 off of a, moderate investment in the right projects in a very short period of time. But most people who don't understand that timing will likely get wrecked.
I invested in the past in crypto and stocks and everything. Now I'm running my startup. And one of the things that you didn't mention is AI. I haven't heard the word AI.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And I was going to ask, how do you think AI could accelerate?
Well, I'll say this. So, people, I recognize that we're going to have a pullback in this economy. I recognize that it's, in my mind, it's likely the fourth quarter of this year. The Fed will give us the first, rate cut, and we'll have a pullback. But again, when you're printing $1 trillion a year, and you have the most impressive emerging technology ever known to man, coming about, changing everything, every product, every aspect of our lives, everything we eat, it's becoming our doctor. It's going to drive us to and fro. It's going to inform us in a way that we can't gather information. It goes beyond the concept of Web 3.0 when it comes to changing our lives. When that's on the horizon, it's also hard for me to see the economy absolutely collapsing. Now, getting into, I will go slightly conspiracy here because, we've gone in a real kind of broad way, right? I've covered a lot with you guys today, but I think that the number is going to be about 50 to 55 trillion. I think that smart money already knows that the US dollar is going to collapse. I think, all of you guys should be aware of it. Bond holders are going to be the ones, the pensioners and bondholders are going to be the ones, they're going to get crushed. The safest investment, in the world is going to go from being the safest to the worst. And we're going to jump. Like I always imagine that Pirates of the Caribbean where he's coming in on a small boat, and right when he gets to the dock, he steps off the sinking boat onto the boardwalk, and that is the US dollar to the Fed now dollar. Larry Fink sees the future, and they're going to position, and just like American Dream, that has to include one of the most beautiful concepts to a lot of people, which is the idea of starting over and going bankrupt. Well, America has paved that way for most of its citizens and its corporations, and it's going to take that final step themselves by abandoning the US dollar. And in my mind, I've had it in my mind that 50 to 55 trillion is going to be the sweet spot. And we're going to be doing more than $1 trillion a year. It's going to begin to ramp up exponentially the closer we get to 2030. Until then, I'm going to be deep in the SPY and the VOO and continue to ride the market higher, but watching carefully for those signs and those changes.
Right.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.